I've spent a little over $200,000 on Facebook ads in the last few months alone. And in this video, I'm going to be breaking down my exact strategies when it comes to running and optimizing Facebook ads. And just to show you guys some of my results here, on one of my stores, I've done a little over $700,000 in sales in just under a year. It's safe to say that these strategies do work. Before I actually show you guys the strategies that I use for testing and scaling products, I first want to go over a couple of things that you need to know before you run your first ad on Facebook. First being, you are not smarter than the algorithm. When it comes to targeting and picking the right audience, Facebook is almost always going to do a better job than you will. After all, they have access to millions of data points that have allowed them to become one of the biggest advertisers to this day. These days, I'm actually very rarely doing any interest-based targeting on Facebook, and rather I try to leave everything as broad as possible, just leaving all of the settings broad and leaving everything up to Facebook. You may be wondering then, how does Facebook know who the ideal customer is without us giving them any input? This actually brings me to my next point, and that is your creative is king. You want to let your creative do pretty much all of the heavy lifting for you, which means instead of worrying about the actual ad strategy that you are using, you should instead put all of your efforts into making the ad as good as possible. So that means working on your hook, making sure you're focusing on all the benefits of the product, making sure your ad is unique and you're not just copying your competitors' ads one for one, or even worse, just downloading them and testing them as is. So really focus on giving Facebook lots of creative assets to actually use and test. So that means images, videos, tons of different headlines and hooks. And that's really going to set up your account in the best way possible and let Facebook, do all the work for you. If you're wondering what a winning creative actually looks like, I made a video on this in the past. I'll leave it down in the description below, so you can go check it out if you want, on how I personally like to make my video creatives. But another piece of advice would just be going and looking at the top D2C brands in your niche and seeing what sort of creatives they're running, what sort of hooks are they using. Because keep in mind, these guys have massive teams behind them. They're constantly testing a lot of creatives, and chances are if you study their creatives and implement just a couple of their strategies, you'll probably see some pretty good results. That being said, the last point I want to go over is your ad strategy is not the reason your product isn't working, or it's not the reason you're unprofitable. I see a lot of people trip up over the exact ad strategy they're using, if they should use ABO, CBO, should they use interests, how should they structure their account? And the reality is, it doesn't really matter. Yes, using a solid ad strategy can help you maximize ad efficiency, but it's not going to make a bad product work. It's not going to make your ads magically perform well if you have a shitty offer, shitty ads, and just a bad product. You really need to focus on making sure all of those other things are solid, and then you can focus on making sure your ad strategy is good and efficient. It will help you maximize the results that you are getting, but the ad strategy is very rarely that last deciding factor on whether or not your store is going to perform well. That being said, let's actually dive into the campaign setup. Let me walk you through on what I'm typically doing these days to test and scale products. When testing a new product, I typically like to stick to a one campaign structure, and let me explain why. Meta themselves has actually advised people to consolidate ad sets and campaigns in their ad account to prevent themselves from competing against each other in the Facebook auction. So in theory, by consolidating your ad account, we should see better results and more efficient and consistent results. So that's the thinking behind it. I've been testing the strategy for myself for a little while now, and it's been working really well. And after speaking to a couple people and friends I know in the space, they also stand by the strategy, and a lot of people have been seeing really good results with it. So I highly encourage you guys give this one a try when testing new products. Another benefit of this is both a testing and scaling campaign. If you see good results with this, you can actually start scaling right away without having to add any other campaigns or restructure your ad account in any way. So I've gone ahead and made this little diagram here, and let me break down what we're essentially looking at. We're gonna have one CBO campaign right here. I'll typically start it at either $50 or $100. Within this campaign, we're going to have 3 different ad sets. 2 of those ad sets or more are going to be DCT ad sets, so dynamic creative testing. And then within those ad sets, I'm going to have all of the ads that I'm testing. Typically 3 to 5 videos or images, never mix them. And then the last ad set will be a winning ads prospecting one, which is a regular ad set that will just have the winning post IDs that we will then pull from the DCT stacks. So this is pretty much what it should look like. Let me jump into my ad account and show you what that actually looks like. So I'm inside of my ad account here, and this is the exact campaign that I'm showing you guys, right? So you can see there's all these ad sets here, which are dynamic creative testing. And in here, I'm basically just testing all of my creatives. And then I have this one ad set here, which is all of the winning combinations from those ads, and it's just called winning ads prospecting. You can see I've spent a little over $20,000 on this ad campaign so far, which has resulted in roughly like 600 purchases. Facebook is under tracking a little bit here, so the results are a little bit better. I mean, this campaign has been working pretty well for me. It's been very consistent. Just wanted to show you guys this real quick, what this actually looks like before we go ahead and set this up. Let's jump into a new ad account, and I'll show you guys how to set something like this up from scratch. All right, so we're in a fresh ad account now, and what I'll go ahead and do is just show you guys how to create this campaign from scratch. So I'm just gonna select sales here. I'm gonna choose manual sales campaign. I'm just gonna call this campaign. I typically like to call my campaigns the product name, $100 CBO, and then just like creative test, and then typically the day that I'm starting it. So in this case, it would be the next day. So on here, we're gonna turn off catalog. We're gonna select Advantage campaign budget, which is essentially CBO. We're gonna set this to $100 a day. And then that's it for this stage of the campaign setup. We're gonna click on the ad set. I'm gonna call this winning ads prospecting. And then in here, you wanna select website. For the performance goal, maximize number of conversions. Pixel, obviously you'll need to set up a pixel here. This is a demo account, so I don't have anything on here, but once you connect your pixel, choose purchases as your objective goal. We're gonna leave dynamic creative off for this one, and we're gonna set this the start date to run next day at 12 a.m. Leave all of this as is, and for this one, I'm actually gonna switch to original audience so I can exclude people that have purchased within the last 90 days. The reason for this is, for this ad set specifically, we only want this to reach a cold audience. So Facebook will typically just retarget either way, even if you don't do any retargeting. So we just want to create a custom audience website. It's going to ask me to create a pixel here. So I'm not going to do this now, but basically create a 90-day purchase audience and just exclude it right here. Everything else we're going to leave as is. Right here, we're going to delete this for now because we don't actually have any winning ads yet. Then what I'm going to do is create a new ad set, and this is actually going to be our dynamic creative testing ad set. So I'm going to call this DCT stack number 1. Same exact thing. I'm going to choose website, purchase for our objective goal. I'm going to turn on dynamic creative. Start date, I'm going to start this the next day at 12 a.m. as the other one. I'm gonna leave all of this the same right here. And then inside of our ad, what we're gonna do is we're just gonna call this like stack number 1. And then here, we're essentially gonna select our Facebook page. I'm just gonna have this blurred here. And then we're gonna do single image or video, multi-advertiser ads. I haven't really noticed any difference if you turn or leave this off. And then we're just gonna select our image assets or video assets here. I would recommend having 3 to 5. You can have more. At the bare minimum, at least have 3. For this to really work, you need multiple ads in here, multiple ad variations, so that way Facebook can split test and find one that works really well. We're gonna turn on optimize creative for each person, and then for the primary text, I typically like doing 2 primary text options, 2 headline options, and then a description. You're gonna fill all this out for your product, your website URL, and then just do call to action shop now. If you have any UTMs, you'll want to paste them here. And that's pretty much it. And then from there, right, let's say we have 6 total videos. So I would put 3 videos in this one ad set, and then I would duplicate it and put 3 videos in the other one. That's pretty much the whole campaign setup. Like, it's really straightforward. If you have more creatives that you've made later, what you want to do is just go back into the campaign as it's running and just make more dynamic creative testing ad sets in there and just drop those in. Once this campaign is live, what I typically look for in the first like 2 to 3 days as it's running is on the first day, I just look for really strong top of funnel metrics like a good CTR, a good cost per click, and a decent CPM. I don't want it to be too high. So a cost per click I typically look for is just under $1. That's like a good sign to me that the product has some potential. I look for some add to carts. If you don't get sales on the first day, like it's not a huge deal because Facebook is still trying to find your perfect customer and still optimizing. So if there are no sales on the first day, like it's not a huge issue. Just make sure there are some add to carts, there is some buyer interest. That's typically a good sign. On day 2 though is when I typically want to see sales on the campaign. If there's no sales, but I really believe in the product, I might let it run for another day. Typically, if there's no sales, it's spent like $150, $200, I will turn the campaign off and go back to the drawing board, either change the offer, the product, the video ads. But if it's break even, that's typically a decent sign for me. That's when I will just let it run for another day without any changes. If the campaign is really profitable and doing well on the second day, I will typically start to increase budget by around 10 to 20% every few days, as long as the KPIs are being hit. Obviously, if the performance drops off, then you want to adjust the budget accordingly, decrease it by 10%, every few days until you find that sweet spot again. Managing this campaign is really, really simple. You just decrease the budgets as needed. Some final things to keep in mind, keep things simple, let Facebook do most of the heavy lifting here. Keep your ad account as simple as possible. There's no need to have like a bunch of campaigns and just a bunch of stuff going on. Focus on creating compelling ads. At the end of the day, that's what's really gonna sell your product. It's not some fancy ad account structure or some new strategy. If you have good ads, it's gonna work no matter what. Yeah, just scale your campaigns by adjusting the budget every few days, depending on your KPIs. So try out this campaign structure. Let me know how it works for you down in the comments below. And if you need more help, you can always message me on Instagram or just book a call with me in the link in bio. That's gonna be all for today. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you found some value in this video, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Peace.